Warhorns are actually really ancient. They are, you know, even though they're used in a lot of modern day traditions and things, there's certain cultures that actually will use these for ceremonies and things like that. But the traditional pagan warhorn has been around for a long, long, long time. In the earlier days, in true ancient paganism, which is what I focus on, this is what they were primarily used for. They were used for protection magic, and sometimes, you know, actual war magic. Now, why I separate the two is that in protection magic, you can use them for warding and shielding magic. Basically, you can create a circle of protection just with the horn itself. You stand wherever you're going to be. You stand in the place that you are, and you yourself are blowing the horn, and you're turning in a circle. You make a complete circle in one breath. You turning around, and that actually creates the circle of protection. So it can be used for that, warding, protection, shielding magic, but it can also be used for actual war magic, dagger magic. And that is what they used to use it for a long time ago, where it's, instead of acting as a shield, the intent, and the intent is what changes it. The intent is what changes it from just a shield to a dagger or an arrow. You know, it's very much, you have to do a lot of your own magic to get it to work. This is raw energy, and you have to put the intent into it and decide what it's going to be and what it's going to do and what it's not going to do. So it can focus, you know, with, you know, your magic, you can focus that into a dagger arrow-like thing. And then it can actually become a tool, a weapon in war magic. But further along the line, Norse, or maybe even younger than that, people started using them more so as sounding or warning horns. It doesn't have to be warning against an enemy, but I guess it could be. Basically, it was sounding an alarm for anything of threat. That's just basic. As basic as, like, instead of sirens going off, that was our siren. This a long time ago was our medieval siren. Okay, so that is a more kind of middle-aged, I won't say real modernized, but more mid-aged use. And like I said, most nowadays people are only using them for protection magic. You know, and maybe cleansing magic. They're really good for cleansing energy. So you can do it, like, you know, in spirit cleansings, cleansing negativity, stuff like that. It really, again, it just depends on your individual intent. Your intent is what changes it completely. This is interesting, because not a lot of things have that much diverse use. Not a lot of things. A lot of times, especially a relic such as a horn, you know, they'll have a specific use, and that energy, you know, you can change it a little bit with your intent, but it's kind of predetermined. Well, this is kind of reminds me of the pentagram, because a lot about the pentagram is your intent. It's not predetermined. It's a symbol that you can use for good, and unfortunately for bad if you want to. So this is interesting that it actually is, you know, something that it depends on you as to what kind of magic you make with it. I can't remember the word for it, but it's eco-friendly in terms of they use everything. They salvage the bones, the horns, you know, the hooves, anything that's, even that it's not edible. You know, here in America, usually, most of the time, unfortunately, we throw even stuff away that's edible. You know, just we throw cuts away that's completely edible. And they will use every scrap of meat, and then they will literally save all the things that are not edible, the teeth, the skulls, the horns, the bones, and they'll make stuff out of them, or they'll sell it, you know. So that's where this one came from. This one was a kudu horn from Africa, and they're very common in Africa. So they're not, you know, endangered or anything. But that's the one I'm not sure about. That's one I don't know exactly how it was hunted or found, but I do know that they still salvaged, you know, everything, and were eco-friendly with it. Origin assured. There we go. That's the word I was trying to remember. Origin assured. That means that they're not wasting anything. So I'm going to start out with the domestic cattle horn. Now this is something I actually messed up on. This is my very first one that I ever made, and they're very, very, very easy to make yourself. Actually, you just saw off the tip until little by little, until you find where the hollow part is. That's assuming that it's just the sheath and not the bone. Ideally, you want to get the horn sheath not with the bone attached to it, so that you don't have to worry about removing the bone. But you'll see that the mouthpiece is kind of wide on here, and what allows this to amplify sound to the best of its ability is that you want the longest amount of gradual widening from the narrow end to the wide end as possible. Because if there's not enough gradual widening, if this end is not narrow enough, then it's not going to do much sound. So this one still amplifies, it just doesn't amplify as good, and therefore it can be a little bit finicky to play the traditional way. But I found out actually that this is good for amplifying other sounds better than, you know, these typical ones that have more the narrow widening. The ones with the real narrow widening amplify it so well that when you're trying to do other sounds with it, it kind of warps the other sounds too much. Anything other than usually your typical Warhorn sounding. This one actually, I can growl into it, and it sounds so amazing to me, because when you growl into it, it amplifies it, and you can still hear the actual growling. You know, it doesn't warp it so much that you can't tell it's a growl. You can still tell it's a growl, and that's why I actually like it a lot, especially for that. So I don't get much practice with these, because most of these, you know, even though they're sacred, they were all you know, obtained through sacred permission. Actually, typically when it's something like that, I don't search for something unless it's tugging on me, unless it's pulling and asking for me to work with it. So really what I'll do is I'll just, you know, when I feel a tug or a pull, I'll go online and I'll try to find whatever it is that's pulling on me. Very rarely do I actually the reverse, where I say, oh, I'm looking for this, let me see which spirit is going to allow me to work with its relic. But you really do have to, either way, however you go about it, you really do have to do that sacred permission. Otherwise that harmony is not going to be there, and they're going to fight against you. You know, you have to respect the animal, you know, and basically it has to agree to have a piece of its own self made into that. You know, you can't just selfishly because you want to. So keep that in mind. Start out with this one, and then I will do the growl at the end, just to show you kind of the different ways it amplifies sound. But I'm going to first start out with the typical way that you blow into it. And really what you're doing is this. That's the noise that you're trying to make while you're, it's the way that your lips have to be, and your lips will have to be a little different for each one. You have to really just kind of you have to feel it, sense it. Each one will be different, but it is a bit of a learning curve to get them to play, and especially this one, because again, it's not ideally cut. So again, this is the domestic cattle horn. That's that one. Oh, I was going to do the growl. Okay. It's actually got really good energy when you growl into it. It actually, I think, is better for the growling than it is for the horn. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to do next the kudu. And again, very common species. It's just not something we see here every day in this side of the world, but this one's got a much different sound to it. That gradual narrowing is what makes the difference, is what makes it that much of a fuller sound, that gradual narrowing of it. So it's just, I did a better job on this one about cutting it at the right place. It got dusk on me and I had to turn on a light, so I do apologise, but I'm going to show you real quickly the last one, the goat one. This is why I'm showing you different horns, okay? They all have their different ways that you have to play them. Now the other two you could kind of blow like that, but this one doesn't do well at all if you do that formation with your lips. It doesn't like it at all. And it can be the same species, you know, same exact species, but each individual horn is different. Each individual horn is gonna sound different, and so you don't always know what it's going to be until you actually get it and make it into something. This one, instead of that, you know, noise that you normally would do, it wants a kind of like a the kind of sort of, I can't even explain what it wants, but you can feel it rebel. You can feel it, you know, not sounding right, and you have to just kind of play with it and listen to the spirit of the horn and let the horn kind of teach you how it wants to be played. There's no easy way to tell somebody how to play these. You're just gonna have to trial and error. And this one you can actually hum along with and make it any pitch you really want to. Yeah, that one has a really specific way it wants you to blow into it. It's almost like, but with the, I can't even, I really can't. There's no way, because you literally cannot make the shape with your lips without the horn. It's ridiculous. That's how specific it has. Most of them are not this complicated, but the fact that, you know, I just kind of learned it, you know, I mean, if I can learn it, anyone can learn that. So don't be put off by the fact that some of them are more difficult to play. Doesn't mean you can't learn it. Doesn't mean you can't know. I mean, they all have their own little quirks and things, yes, but, you know, don't do it for that reason. Don't do it for the reason that it's easy. Do it for the reason that the energy of the horn, you know, feels right to you. That's really what you need to go by.